Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. When I say the word blue balls, I think we all know what I'm talking about. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I'm genuinely concerned for you. And actually probably too young to watch the channel. But anyways, without further ado, this is the story about how I got blue balls in the most wrong moment of my life. And I've actually had a few of these growing up. So let's just start with this one. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story is basically how I got blue balls in a really awkward situation. But obviously, I have to tell it in the way that I need to tell it and basically start from the very beginning. It all starts off back when I was in middle school. And I had a middle school crush that I really loved. Like, no joke, I think it got to the point where I would basically do anything to see this girl fall in love with me. And I was such a helpless romantic that I actually wrote about her in my journal, aka my diary that I have. Well, it's mostly a journal, but people say diary for some reason. I have no idea why. Going on though, I remember one time I was writing inside my journal, and basically I was writing down, you know, just how my day was and how I wish I did better in some things. Like, for example, actually being social in class. You gotta understand, me in middle school, I wasn't cool, I wasn't popular, and the only way I got popular was when I got the Nintendo 3DS, so I can actually play Smash Bros with at least someone that kind of understands me. I had to buy a whole 3DS just to be cool, okay? Just, we're not gonna question it. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember basically one time, I saw my middle school crush actually walking down the hallway, so what I decided to do is I decided to close my book and decide to stand up and actually walk up to her. Funny enough, our lockers were beside each other. Well, actually, it wasn't funny enough. I actually really tried to get the locker right beside her, and I literally had to shove a girl walking up to the locker and putting my lock on it first, but we'll just say it was luck. But I remember I went up to my locker as she went up to hers, and I basically ended up putting my journal away, and she noticed it. She noticed it and thought it was kind of funny how I had a journal, and don't worry, I made sure she realized that it was a journal. And basically, I just ended up telling her how I just want to record my experience for whenever I ever got famous and people want to know my middle school life. Funny enough, I actually did a video of me showing this journal, so if you guys are really curious about it, you guys can go check that out. Going on though with the story, I remember basically that same day I ended up going to class with her because we had the same classroom that we usually went to, and we ended up sitting there getting ready for math class. And as we were doing math equations, apparently there was an announcement that my teacher had to make, and that was that we're having a winter dance. Now, if you guys don't know what dances are, basically it's when a bunch of students gather up together and basically go on the dance floor, listen to some, well, really old school music, but still family friendly, and basically just enjoy a good night. And I really wanted to do that. There was no way I was not gonna go to the school dance with my crush, right? Like, obviously. So me being the man I was, I basically ended up planning myself to basically go ask her out. I remember I ended up basically walking around, basically, you know, trying to find the perfect moment to ask her. And it got to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty creepy because I would basically be following her around the school. And I hope it wasn't noticeable, but if it was, God, I really don't like myself. But going on though, I remember I was basically walking around trying to figure out when was the perfect time to ask her. And funny enough, when she ended up going back to her locker to put her stuff away, that was the perfect time. And it seemed like the only perfect time since that was the only time I actually ever got to tell her words, at least. So I remember I ended up walking up to her and opened my locker, even though there was really nothing I needed in it. And basically ended up asking her saying, oh, like, hey, like, what's going on? I remember she looked at me, and when she looked at me with her eyes, I remember I basically froze. And I literally just stood there as basically my ears just went deaf. And I don't know what happened, but basically I was just seeing her mouth move, but I wasn't understanding anything that was coming out of it. But one thing led to another. A friend ended up coming behind her and basically ended up saying, oh, hey. And they started talking, and I didn't get to say anything to her. It was super awkward, and honestly, I regret not asking her at that moment, but trust me, this story gets even worse than that. I remember I was super nervous, and I basically tried another attempt at asking her, except this time it was after school. It was after school, and I remember she ended up walking up back to her locker after school to get her things to go home. And I was basically like kind of like at the classroom door ready to go out and basically just do it. And usually when I want to do something courageous back when I was a kid, my mom always told me to count down from 3. So that's what I did. I went 3, 2, 1, and right as I stepped 1 foot forward, another guy that was a lacrosse player in our school decided to walk up to her already and say, yo, hey girl, like, I'm just wondering, like, yo, like, are you going to like the dance with anyone? Because like, I'll take you. I remember my middle school crush ended up looking at him, and I'm not gonna lie, she didn't seem excited about him asking her. So I remember as she was about to give an answer, she looked over at me as I was literally kind of behind the guy about to walk up, and she ended up basically turning him down. I remember when he turned him down, I kind of just looked and kind of looked confused because, like, you know, he was way cooler than me, stronger than me, and he played a sport that I could never play. Like, I don't understand lacrosse. It's a stick with a net, okay? Just play hockey, for God's sake. Sorry, not the point, but going on. I remember I was super confused by it, and basically I kind of just stayed quiet. I didn't say anything, and basically this guy that was way cooler than me ended up walking off all upset. But then afterwards, I remember instead of asking her, thinking this was my moment, I thought it was a really dumb idea to ask her anything, so I decided to walk away and turned around. Yeah, I gave up my chance of actually asking her to go to the dance with me. But honestly, like I said earlier, the story gets worse. I remember basically after that situation, I ended up actually, funny enough, decided basically not to ask her out to the dance. And you guys are probably wondering why, and that's because if she was willing to turn down a super cool lacrosse player and basically a guy that was way cooler than me, then why in the world would she go with me? So I remember basically I ended up just pretending that I didn't know her and I just decided to just move on from her. At least that was what I thought I was doing. But in reality, I knew in my heart I still loved her. And funny enough, when you love someone, love has a magical way of somehow reconnecting you guys. So I remember out of nowhere, I remember her friend decided to walk up to me and say, hey, like, I'm just wondering, like, do you have a date to the dance? No, is what I said. And me thinking she was gonna ask me, she told me, oh, like, well, you should ask like that girl. As she literally pointed to my middle school crush. I remember I ended up saying no because, like, you know, I thought someone might have as well, like, already asked her and stuff. But then she ended up telling me that she was expecting me to ask her for a long time now. I remember I was freaked out and kind of confused, but if that was the case, then I might as well ask her. At the same time, though, I'm not gonna lie, I thought she was trolling, but surprisingly, I remember I decided to just have faith and I ended up just walking up to her. I walked up to her and I literally said the question, hey, so like, I was like, wondering, if like, you know, you're cool with like, you know, me, I was thinking me, you, and like, you know, clothing, but you know, obviously wear appropriate clothing to go dance. I don't know why I asked her like I was stupid, but yeah, I was stupid. And basically, I remember at that point, she ended up giggling and said, OMG, finally you asked me. Like, seriously, how long does it take for you just to ask me out? Wait, what is what I said? And basically one thing led to another. It ended up being that she ended up reading my journal when I wasn't looking on my desk. I think I went to go to the bathroom because I was having some really bad bowel movements, but that's not the point. Long story short, she ended up saying yes to me and well, I was in. It was kind of like a victory at that point, but that's not where things get worse. I remember at home, I was getting ready to basically go to the dance with this girl and I ended up wearing a white shirt with a nice collar on it. And also I wore really nice black pants that my dad gave me from when he was younger. I don't know. It was the only ones that were clean. Okay. And basically I ended up putting on my normal shoes and I ended up going to the dance. And when I got there, I remember I met up with her and for some reason, the lacrosse player that decided to ask her first was really upset with me. Like, no joke. He was giving me the stare down as if I was literally like Satan coming for his mother to do the devil's tango. And basically he just kept staring at me as if I literally stole his girl. Oh wait, I did. Bazinga. Sorry. That's not the point. But going on though, I remember I was basically just, you know, walking around with my pride and thinking, hey, I'm actually cool. Like, you know, I got Riz. And basically we ended up going on the dance floor, listening to some really awkward 2010 music since, you know, this was back when I was in middle school. But then right as I thought things were going to be amazing and I was going to have an amazing night, it happened. It happened where basically the slow dance music came on and they were playing Girl on Fire from Alicia Keys. Now I love her music, but I can never listen to that song normally again because what ended up happening next, well, I'm not going to lie to you, the story is too long to tell. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to another insane story. So last we ended off, I basically ended up going to the dance with my middle school crush. It was the winter dance and honestly, I was really proud of myself for getting the balls to ask her because if you guys saw the last episode, you would know it was literally a pain to do. But today, no joke, was the day. I knew when I walked in there, obviously I had some eyes on me, especially the lacrosse kid that really hates me. By the way, what's the point of lacrosse? I really don't get the whole stick thing. Just play hockey. I can't stress this enough. Sorry, but going on, he was basically staring me down really upset because, well, he was asking the same question I was literally the day of when she said yes to me of why me. Obviously, I got an answer and that's because she ended up reading my journal and read how much I actually cared about her instead of her basically growing cherries at middle school. That sounded really bad. I really should not say that. But going on, I remember basically when I was at the dance and me and her, we were basically just walking around dancing to different songs that were being blasted. And by the way, this was like really old 2010 music that I don't think any of you guys might know. Like, for example, if I said like OMG by Usher, I doubt you guys would know what song that is. But if you do, then comment down below you know it. So I know you at least have some sort of culture in you. But other than that, this was like before Juice WRLD and stuff. So obviously, you know, it was a really old school type of dance. But going on from there, I remember I went and basically when I did, I was with her and we were just dancing, jamming out to stuff like that. But as we were jamming out though, I remember this part of every dance that I usually freak out in because I always see it in the movies. But basically it was the part where it was a slow dance. Now, I'm not good at slow dancing. And I wouldn't say I'm as bad as Wednesday, you know, just going off a spree. But I will say this much, I never really actually had proper experience back when I was in middle school. So me knowing this, I didn't really know what to do. But basically, all I remember is that my middle school crush ended up walking up to me saying, oh my goodness, like, let's slow dance. And I ended up saying, okay, like, I'm down. And yeah, one thing led to another. She literally ended up putting her hands around my neck neck. And yeah, I mean, I was really like kind of shook because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I remember I ended up just leaving my hands on my side, swaying side to side like a penguin. It looked really weird and honestly super embarrassing. But then I remember she looked at me with her eyes wide open saying, Baba, put your hands on my side. Because apparently all her friends were watching her dance with me. So I ended up getting my hands and putting it on like her waist. And I was really shook. Like no joke. I think this was the closest connection I ever had with my middle school crush other than us hitting knees when we were in table groups back in class. But still, I didn't know what to do. I remember basically the song I was playing was Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire. And as me and her were swaying back and forth, I remember for some reason, I was looking into this girl's eyes like nonstop. Like no joke. I wasn't blinking. I looked like I was like giving surgery. I was super weird and awkward. And I remember I literally didn't know what to do. But then she ended up coming closer to me to the point where like her like torso was hitting my torso. And I will say this much, my hormones kicked in. Yes, I ended up growing my massive eggplant out. It was super embarrassing because I didn't know what to do. But all I'm gonna say is that I literally ended up basically how do I put this? I ended up growing a massive eggplant. Like my pants were levitating. Okay, I don't know how to explain it. Okay, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. And I remember she like, I think she did feel it. I'm not sure, but I think she was just like not really focused on that, which thank God, because if she did, that'd be super awkward in mid of dance. But basically, I remember I knew what was happening and I didn't want her to feel it, right? And me, my hands were on her waist, so I couldn't do the belt method where I just flick it up. So it's just, you know, getting held by my belt. So what I ended up doing was doing the only thing I could do. I remember as we were swaying back and forth and me knowing this, the chorus of the song Girl on Fire ended up happening. You know the part where it's like, this girl is on fire. Yeah, I can't sing for the life of me, but basically right at that point where she was yelling the word fire, I ended up pushing her away and ran away. Yeah, I ran away from my middle school crush mid-dance with a hard on. It was embarrassing and I was embarrassed. Okay, I was embarrassed, but I remember as I was running away because, you know, I was basically trying to sprint to the bathroom to figure out what to do and basically make it not levitate. She ended up yelling midway through me running away saying, wait, Bubba, what the hell? And she got really upset. But me, I didn't want her knowing I grew an eggplant. That's like embarrassing, right? So I remember I ended up just basically running. And when I got to the bathroom, I remember I ended up just going to the nearest stall I could find, sitting down and basically just sat there. I sat there, took off my pants, and I was just like yelling at my own eggplant. I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but basically I just yelled at it saying, go down, stop it, go down, right now, stop. Like, I don't know. I just kept yelling at it to the point where I ended up calling my mom and I literally told my mom what was happening. And my mom just told me to think of my grandma. And yeah, it ended up going down like after like, I want to say an hour and a half. It was super weird and honestly it sucked. But I will say this much, since it was like one of my first very close connections with a woman, I guess like kind of just made sense. But yeah, basically from there, I remember I basically just like ended up just walking out of the bathroom after like an hour and a half. But I remember I wanted to go back to her and apologize for what happened. So I remember I basically ended up walking up to the gym doors trying to think, okay, what do I say? Just make up a quick story about it. So that's what I did. I walked up to her, but as I was walking up to her, I realized that the slow dancing was still going on, which by the way, an hour for slow dancing in middle school is kind of crazy. But I remember I ended up trying to walk up to her. And when I was trying to walk up to her, I realized that she already had a new partner. And who would have guessed it was the lacrosse kid that literally plays lacrosse? I remember I was so annoyed and I was like in the verge of tears, but I didn't want anyone seeing. So I remember what I decided to do instead was I literally ended up just going to the nearest concession stand that was there. I ended up taking out $1 and basically bought myself a can of Crush soda. It was orange Crush, by the way, because that was the only good flavor. No one likes grape Crush soda. And if you do, you're weird. And it basically ended up going outside my school, sitting on the park bench that was there. And basically I just sat down and just drank my soda, looking up to the stars and crying. I don't know. It kind of sucked knowing what happened, but at the same time though, like I gotta blame my body, I guess. I don't know. At the end of the day, we're all humans, right? We all do dumb things, but I don't know. This one just really hit the most. Anyways, I remember afterwards, I ended up just saying, this is baloney. I'm just gonna go home. And I ended up just walking home by myself. And I remember as I was walking home, apparently all my friends were texting me to come back and that things have changed. But honestly, I didn't want to believe them because it could be just a joke. But the next time I did see her at school, I will say this much, things did change. And I don't know if it was for the better or for worse, but I guess we'll save that for another story. Okay, so I've left this story in the back burner for way too long. The final part of me and my crush. And I just want to say I am so sorry that I did not give it to you guys sooner. I should have gave it to you guys sooner, and I don't know why I didn't, but I guess this video will finally make up for that. So let's just get straight into it so I don't waste your time. Actually, that's a lie. I'm gonna waste 2 seconds just to say make sure you guys do follow my Kick, because I'm streaming on Kick, going live, and also telling you guys crazy stories just like this one. Anyways, let's get straight into into it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to an awesome story. So today's story is a final part of me and my crush. If you guys didn't see that story, basically go back to the last 2 videos of basically where I ended up blue balling in front of my crush in my middle school dance, and also I ended up asking my middle school crush to the dance. If you guys watch those 2 videos, honestly, you guys will understand what happens, and basically now we ended up here. Anyways, last we left off, I remember basically I was walking home from the school dance all upset and really down, but I was getting text messages back to back on my phone of basically people saying that I should come back. Now obviously I ignored it. I was too embarrassed, and honestly I was really shy. Like, are you kidding me? I literally had like blue balls in front of my crush, and you expect me to go back? I couldn't. I was too embarrassed, and I was so nervous. So I remember basically what ended up happening was I ended up staying at home just playing video games, and even the next morning when I woke up, I didn't want to go to school. I was so shy and so embarrassed, but then I ended up getting an Instagram notification. I got an Instagram notification of, funny enough, my middle school crush liking one of my photos. It was the photo that my mom took before I went to the school dance, and I forgot I posted it, but she ended up liking it, and she commented under it saying, "Can't wait to see you at school." Like, really? Are you actually excited to see me at school is what I thought in my mind, because there's no way this girl was actually excited after I literally had blue balls and ran away from her in the middle of the school dance. Like I said, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the last episode of this. Anyways, going on from there though, I remember I ended up getting my backpack ready and stuff because my mom always told me that I had to go to school, and by that I mean she would take away my console if I didn't. So yeah, I got ready for school and I started walking to school. As I was walking to school though, I remember I was really kind of just walking really slowly, because in my mind I was thinking, if I go to school and I had to explain to everyone that I got a basic blue balls in front of my middle school crush during a dance, I could never live with myself. Anyways, I was writing my journal basically saying how I really didn't want to go to school, and then I finally made it to the front steps. When I got to the front steps, I remember I opened the door handle, and once I walked in, I remember seeing a lot of people actually staring at me. I don't know why they were staring at me. I don't know if it was because I had my shirt on backwards, or it's because maybe I had my backpack kind of in a weird angle. I have no idea. But anyways, as I was walking through the hallway, I remember I ended up seeing my locker. And as you guys may know, I ended up getting my locker beside my crush's locker. So I remember as I was walking up to my locker, my crush was already there. I didn't want to walk up to her. I couldn't after what I did. So I remember I kind of just ended up turning around and walking away and basically trying to avoid her. And I remember I kept avoiding her throughout the whole day. Like, I think I didn't even go to my locker. You know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't. But then I remember when I ended up going into my math class, me and her, we sat in the same table group. And when I sat down on my desk, I remember I ended up kind of looking at her because she was literally sitting right across from me. It was like a super awkward dinner date with a girl that you just don't know how to speak to. So I remember I ended up just sitting down, and then she ended up looking at me saying, "Hey, Bubba, can I talk to you after school, please?" Yeah, sure, is what I ended up telling her. I didn't know why she wanted to talk to me or why she whispered she wanted to talk to me. I was already embarrassed enough. Like, she didn't have to tell me to my face, as at least that's what I thought was gonna happen. But I remember I ended up looking around the classroom, and honestly, everything kind of just started to go normal. Maybe I was overreacting a bit when I thought, you know, maybe my world was over. But I remember after math class, I ended up going to my locker with her, and we ended up talking. As we were walking to our lockers, I remember she looked at me and said, "Hey, like, I just have a question. Like, was everything okay yesterday?" And I ended up looking at her saying, "Oh yeah, like, it's fine. I was okay." She ended up looking at me, and she realized I was stuttering and said, "Listen, like, honestly, I heard a rumor, but like, I don't know if it's true." "What's the rumor?" is what I asked her afterwards. She ended up finally saying to me, "Well, like, I heard that, like, I don't know, like, you got like hard from me dancing with me yesterday." "Where'd you hear that from?" "What? No, I would never get that hard," is what I said. And honestly, it's weird how people found that out as well. Like, I have no idea how people found out I got blue balls from my middle school crush during the school dance listening to "Girl on Fire" by Alicia Keys. But I remember out of pure embarrassment, I ended up just looking at her as she looked at me kind of like in a puzzled face, and I ended up saying, "Okay, yeah, maybe I got one, and honestly, I'm sorry. I didn't know what came a hold of me." And I basically apologized to my middle school crush that I had blue balls. I apologize for having blue balls. What man has to apologize for his giant eggplant to become giant? I don't know. I was really upset, and I remember I was embarrassed, and I didn't know what to think. And when I apologized, I remember I was looking at the ground, but then when I looked up and I looked at her eyes, she ended up kissing me. Yeah. she ended up kissing me. I don't know what I did, but she literally just came up to me and just kissed me right in my face. And at that moment, I was confused. I'm like, wait, what? You just kissed me, is what I said after she was done. She looked at me and said, well, yeah, like, honestly, like, no guy's ever been hard for me before. And I think that's kind of cute. You think it's cute when I have a boner for you? Where were you months ago? Sorry. That's super weird, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I remember basically after that whole thing, I was super like ecstatic. I was happy. I was freaking out. And then this is where things get worse. I remember there was my middle school, well, enemy, I would say, in this situation. He ended up walking up to me, and he was the lacrosse kid that was in the last 2 episodes of this story. He walked up to me and said, yo, like, what? You kissed him? Are you kidding me? And the kid that played lacrosse ended up pushing me on the ground. He pushed me on the ground and basically started laughing. And then I realized that my journal was literally on the ground as well, because it fell out of my backpack when he pushed me. I remember the kid that was like a lacrosse player that was also a bully in this sense ended up picking up my book, aka my journal, or diary as some people say, but it's a journal, and he started opening it and reading it. He read how basically I was in love with my middle school crush. He read how I was literally in love with her, how I loved her so much, how I was obsessed with her, basically everything that a guy should not be reading about another girl. And I remember he looked at it and was reading through it and was laughing, and he said it out loud to other people in the hallway, to the point where I stood up, I walked up to him, and I don't know what came a hold of me, but yes, I did do this, and I regret it so badly. I kicked him in the eggplant. Yeah, I kicked him in the eggplant. I was so embarrassed. And I remember when I kicked him, he ended up dropping my book. I grabbed it and I saw my middle school crush's eyes as she was like kind of like tearing up, thinking how like adorable it was for what I did. But I didn't know that. I thought she was embarrassed from what I wrote in my journal. So I ended up running away. I ran outside to the oak tree that was outside our middle school, and I sat down and started writing down what just happened. I never felt a more depressing day than that one. It sucked. I didn't know what to think. To think that, you know, I get kissed and the next minute I get exposed for just being me. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Anyways, after that situation, I remember I was sitting down and just kind of I don't know, being all sad. It got to the point where after writing my journal, I ended up reading my Batman comic book. And then that's when, out of nowhere, my middle school crush ends up seeing me again. She walks up to me and sits beside me beside the oak tree, and she's like, honestly, Bubba, like, that guy sucks, okay? Just don't listen to him. He's just a jerk. Yeah, I know, is what I said to her afterwards. She looks at me again, and she's like, Bubba, listen, honestly, I think you're awesome, and I think you're adorable. I think you're cute. I really like you too. Really? Is what I said? Because I didn't believe it. To be honest, it felt like it was something straight out of a movie she was explaining to me. But then she ended up putting her hand on my hand that was on my comic book, and she ended up saying, also, my favorite superhero is Catwoman. What? Is what I said? At that point, I knew me and her, we were gonna be in a really good relationship. But at the same time, though, I will say this much, we were in middle school, so our relationship wasn't that crazy, but it does get crazier throughout the school year. But anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing but crazy stories. Peace out, guys.